I made a video recently talking about why you should support the new Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver remasters, and it did really well on my channel, so I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning into that video, leaving your likes and comments. It's been really nice to see the support. But I did notice one thing in the comments that just kept on coming up. Blood Omen. A lot of comments were mentioning how much they loved Blood Omen, and they were quite disappointed to see that Blood Omen wasn't getting remastered in the new Soul Reaver remasters, with some people even saying they would have rather have seen Blood Omen remastered over Soul Reaver 1 and 2. Me personally, I grew up with Soul Reaver 1 and 2 and Defiance as well. I knew of Blood Omen, but I never really checked it out until a few years ago. And admittedly, I really did get hooked on it. I was watching hundreds of videos talking about the lore and the story. So whilst I have dabbled with this particular game, I know the story and I've grown to really appreciate that game. And I do agree to an extent, as much as someone who's not actually played the game can, that the story in Blood Omen is arguably better than the story of Soul Reaver. This game is the first in the Legacy of Kain series, and it's really laid the foundation for Soul Reaver with great characters and the world of Nosgoth. And it has to be said, the lore of Nosgoth and the Legacy of Kain series is legendary. But it is a very fair question to ask, why wasn't Blood Omen remastered? Well, in today's video we're going to be looking into some of the reasons as to why Blood Omen has not yet been remastered, so sit back, relax, grab your cloak and dagger and your favourite goth clothes, and let's get into the video. The Legacy of Kain series began in 1996 with Blood Omen Legacy of Kain, developed by Silicon Knights and published by Crystal Dynamics. Blood Omen is an action RPG that tells the story of Kain, a nobleman who's brutally murdered by a group of assassins, but instead of staying dead, he's brought back to life as a vampire seeking revenge on those who wronged him. Kain tries to take control of the land of Nosgoth, and he quickly learns that his resurrection is definitely a part of a bigger and darker plan. The world of Nosgoth is on the brink of collapse, and Kain is caught in the middle of a battle between powerful forces, including the corrupted Circle of Nine, a group of vampiric leaders who have twisted the land's fate. And throughout the game, Kain has to confront his past, fight his way through enemies, and grapple with his newfound vampiric powers. Along the way, he uncovers secrets about his death, his resurrection, and the terrible fate that awaits Nosgoth. As Kain's powers grow, so does his arrogance, leading him to make some choices that set the stage for the conflict and betrayal that follows in the later games in the series. It's a very dark, story-driven adventure filled with twists and turns. Blood Omen was generally well received by critics, praised for its dark and immersive world, its engaging story, and unique action RPG mechanics, which really stood it out from other games at that time. However, Blood Omen was a low-budget title compared to other major releases, and it didn't achieve massive commercial success straight away. This is partially because it was released during a time when 3D graphics and more mainstream action games were becoming the focus, and Blood Omen had more of a niche gothic appeal. That being said, the game still did have a very solid following, and it built the foundations for the Legacy of Kain series to continue. In terms of that, it was a critical success, and its relatively modest sales allowed the developers Silicon Knights and Crystal Dynamics to continue building on that universe, leading to the more commercially successful Soul Reaver in 1999. Soul Reaver garnered a much larger fanbase and helped establish the series as a franchise. Soul Reaver's success was a pivotal moment for the Legacy of Kain series, but even as the franchise gained momentum, the journey wasn't without its challenges. Despite its critical acclaim and growing fanbase, the tangled ownership rights between the developers created a serious obstacle for the series down the road. And this leads us to our first reason as to why we haven't seen a remaster for Blood Omen. There's a complicated legal mess surrounding Blood Omen, and it kind of makes it tough for anyone to easily re-release or remaster the original Blood Omen. When Blood Omen was released, it was a collaboration between Silicon Knights and Crystal Dynamics. Now, after release, the relationship between the two unfortunately soured. This tangled ownership really created complications when trying to re-release or remaster the original games. The ownership split doesn't just affect Blood Omen, it actually has a ripple effect across the entire series. With both Silicon Knights and Crystal Dynamics holding different rights to the series, future projects, including sequels and remasters, become increasingly difficult to coordinate. At the moment, there's no real way to confirm what exactly soured this relationship. It's speculated online that it was creative disagreements or disagreements over ownership, but Crystal Dynamics developed the more successful Soul Reaver and its sequels. They're in a better position to continue the franchise, but with the lack of full control over Blood Omen and its assets, it significantly limited their ability to revisit or improve the original game. And as a result, fans of the series are left with no real clear way of experiencing Blood Omen on modern consoles, and Blood Omen has unfortunately become trapped in this legal limbo. Even as the demand for a remaster grew over the years, the fragmented ownership ensured that the potential for a proper Legacy of Kain collection or revival certainly does remain uncertain. Okay, so let's say, down the line, we sort out all the legal problems. That brings us on to reason number 2. Blood Omen will face a major technical challenge when it comes to modernising its graphics. Unlike Soul Reaver, which was built using a 3D engine, it's easier to update those with modern enhancements or just a simple remaster. Blood Omen, however, relies on an older 2D sprite-based technology. The game's visuals are made up of flat, pre-drawn images that aren't really as flexible or scalable as 3D assets are. Upgrading Blood Omen's graphics wouldn't be just as simple as adding higher resolutions or polishing textures. Since the game uses 2D sprites, nearly everything from the character models to the environments would need to be completely redrawn or even replaced with 3D assets, so in short, the game would have to be remade from the ground up. But it doesn't stop there. A full remake would also require reworking of other aspects of the game, such as the camera system, the controls, and possibly even the gameplay mechanics. All of this would take a lot of time and a lot of resources. This makes it much harder for developers to bring Blood Omen back in a way that would satisfy both long-time fans and newcomers, without losing the essence of what made the original so unique. But let's be real, fan demand plays a huge role in whether a game gets remastered or not. Whilst Blood Omen clearly has a loyal fanbase, Soul Reaver has a much more broader appeal. It's often considered one of the greatest action-adventure games of its time, thanks to in part its groundbreaking mechanics like the ability to shift between realms. That innovation alone sets Soul Reaver apart from other games, making it more widely loved and remembered. When publishers decide whether or not to greenlight a remaster, they don't just look at the game's history, they take a look at the market. They analyse the data, they gauge fan sentiment and track what people are saying online. If you spend a few minutes just browsing through forums and social media, it's clear to see there's far more buzz around the Soul Reaver remasters than there would be for Blood Omen. Fans of Raziel have made their voices loud and clear, constantly expressing their desire to see the games brought back to life. And publishers will pay attention to that noise. Most of the time. So, will Blood Omen ever get its time back in the spotlight? Well, there's still hope. Fans have been calling for a Blood Omen remaster for years now, and with the new Soul Reaver remasters, there's definitely a renewed interest in the Legacy of Kain franchise. It's clear to see that people still care for this game series, and if the Soul Reaver remasters do well enough, it might just give a chance for Blood Omen to be remastered as well. Of course, until that legal stuff is all sorted out, it's really tough to say for sure. But in the meantime though, we're not completely out of luck. The Legacy of Kain community has been incredibly creative, keeping the spirit of Blood Omen alive through fan mods, fan projects, and of course, through the Soul Reaver remasters. So, while we wait for some official news, we can still celebrate and enjoy the series, even if it's not exactly the way you'd like. So yeah, thank you very much for watching all the way up to the end. I hope you all enjoyed this dive into the history of Blood Omen. Let's keep the conversation going in the comment section below. Let me know your thoughts. Would you rather see a Blood Omen remaster or a new entry in the Legacy of Kain series? Don't forget to leave a like, comment or subscribe if you are new. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.